We've all heard about MAGA, Make America Great Again. But what about Canada? Do we need to make Canada great again? There was a time when Canada had a high esteem around the world, but has that declined over the last decade or two? And if so, why? Today's guest has some strong opinions on this. Joining us from Ontario is retired Lieutenant General Michel Maisonneuve. He spent 35 years in the Canadian Army. He served as the Assistant Deputy Chief of the Defence Staff of Canada and Chief of Staff of NATO's Allied Command Transformation in Norfolk. His new book is In Defense of Canada, Reflections of a Patriot. Michel, it's so great to have you with us.
Thank you, Naveen. Merci beaucoup de m'avoir invité.
Well, great to have you with us again. Can you give us a brief overview of your book and tell us why you wrote it?
For sure, Naveen. So I was very honored to receive an award in 2020 that was presented eventually in 2022. And that award came with the opportunity to make a speech on any topic I wanted when accepting the award. The award's called the Vimy Award. And so and it was presented to me at the Museum of Civilization in Ottawa. And I'd been unhappy with the status of our country for many years, particularly since 2015. And I thought, as you said, that our country had been declining in many ways due to lack of leadership, lack of service, and a huge bit of complacency within the Canadian population. So I made that speech, and I got a rousing standing ovation, but the next day I was canceled. And so I was approached to write this book so that I could kind of expand on those things that I was unhappy about in our country. And that's exactly the genesis of the book.
Right, because that award, it garnered a lot of attention. Like, some people were angry about it, but others cheered you loudly. So what was it about your speech that stirred up all these responses?
Well, I think some people, especially academics on the left and people who, some of the I guess, lily-livered, I call them, people in Canada who just were unwilling to look at our country for really the way it is today. They were unhappy, and and this is this century's, if you wish, cancel culture, which I was faced with. But I decided that no, I was not going to be canceled. I was going to actually double down on the things I'd said, and it turned out that I'm getting a lot of comments on the book, and I mean 98% of them are positive, and I just explained that in many ways, and I can go through exactly what I talk about, but there are lots of ways that I think our country needs to improve and get back to the greatness that it was.
Right, because I remember hearing, and this is like back in the 90s and early 2000s, that non-Canadian travelers were sewing Canadian flags onto their luggage or their bags and their clothing when they were traveling, because Canada was such a revered nation around the world and people just loved Canadians. You write about Canada's glorious past, Canada Mattered, where we had this honored place in the world. Do you feel that this has faded?
I feel it really has faded, Naveen, and the reasons are quite clear. I think it's because our leaders have not provided us the leadership that we should have. We have let go of a lot of the positions we had in the world. Our military has been degraded significantly right now. And so what it means is that we don't have a seat at the table when countries are speaking now. What we're seeing now with the Americans, with these tariffs that are coming in, that's all part of it. It's because we haven't stood up ourselves to break our interprovincial barriers, to increase and fund our military to the way it should be. We've been free riders and riding on the coattails of the Americans, but also many other nations. And so that's why we are where we are today. We're not, we have a glorious past. Yes, we made mistakes, but you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have to understand that, yeah, these mistakes are there. And if we try to eliminate our past, we will forget those lessons that we should have learned then as well. So there are a lot of ways that we need to fix this country.
So what is our place in the worldview today? Like, do other nations take us seriously?
I don't think they do. And what I tried to do in the book, Naveen, is I explain, those the 45 years, so 35 years in the armed forces and then another 10 as a senior public servant. In those 45 years, I've had experiences that put me in situations where I could see where Canada mattered, where Canada made sense and was an important ally. And I just don't see that today. I mean, I'll give you an example. After 9/11, on the 7th of October, 2001, I was sitting to the right of General Tommy Franks when the war began in Afghanistan. I mean, here I was. To the right was a sign that said Canada. To the left, there's a sign that said the UK. And so we were at the table with them. I just don't think that today we have that kind of that level of, if you wish, of interest and consideration by our allies.
And you mentioned earlier how Canada often piggybacks military support off of the U.S. Can you just talk about how our government has failed to the Canadian Armed Forces and what needs to change?
Yeah, so the NATO nations. First of all, NATO nations in 2014 decided that, and Canada signed on to this, that they were going to devote 2% of their gross domestic product to national defense. We have never met that. And then in 2014, we were probably at about 1%. We're now at 1.4%, probably. Yeah, believe it or not. And so because we don't devote enough money, what happens is we don't have enough equipment. We don't have enough personnel. Right now, we're missing something like 16,000 people in the Canadian Armed Forces. We don't have enough equipment. We don't have enough personnel to field the equipment that we do have today. And we don't have enough ships. We don't have enough airplanes or military personnel for the Army. So it's kind of it's one of those things. So we've been been free riders, if you wish, on the coattails of Americans who pay something. I saw some statistics this morning. Something like 66% of the entire NATO budget is paid for by the Americans. All the other nations put together is only 44%. So that's not fair. I mean, we need to pay our share. We haven't done so.
And your book includes some opinions on free speech. And tell us why this is so important and what you would like to see put into place to bring an increase to the freedoms that we already enjoy here in Canada.
Well, Naveen, I think you'll agree with me that if you want to speak and you're part of the ongoing narrative, that you believe the same thing as the media brings out and all that, you're going to be fine. You got to be able to give your speech and you won't be canceled for it. But if you happen to have an opinion that is different than the normal narrative, and you want to express that opinion, not hatefully, but in a nice way that actually provides also facts to back up your opinion, then that's when cancellation occurs. And so, for 45 years, I was restricted in my freedom of speech. I could not criticize government policy because I was inside, if you wish, in a way, government, and I was there to implement policy as opposed to criticize it. But now that I'm out of the military, out of the public service, I have a right, like every citizen, to express my opinion. And so that's what I mean by freedom of speech. We must be able in Canada to talk about anything we want to, as long as it's not hateful, and to give our opinion, backing it up with facts. And that's what I tried to do in this book. And I hope Canadians actually will come out of their complacency, because I think that's another huge problem that we have. Canadians just kind of go along and don't have an opinion. Sometimes they don't care what the government's doing. Sometimes they don't even vote. I mean, the participation in our elections is very low. So we need to get Canadians out of their complacency, and that's why this book is, to me, was important. And also, I wanted to create a dialogue. So the ideas in there you may not agree with, but at least look at them, think about them, consider them. And if you agree, fine. If you don't, tell me why and come back to me and give me, other ideas that should be considered, and that might actually change my opinion.
And it's interesting about that censorship, because here at Bridge City News, we experienced that firsthand during the pandemic, when we had medical experts on that would say things that would challenge either local health authorities or the WHO. We would actually get restricted on YouTube and other platforms because we would say something that we would present someone's opinion that would question the narrative. Now, you have earned the nickname of the anti-woke general, and you have a chapter on radical agendas, quote. Now, this is on climate alarmism, DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, wokeism. Where is Canada headed?
Well, I think we have gone too far to the left. I really do. I mean, in all our policies, all the money, all the special interest groups that are being funded by the government right now in those areas that you just talked about, the whole woke idea, the whole DEI, going extreme on the extreme far left on this stuff. So all I'm saying is let's bring the pendulum back. DEI was kind of it's the ongoing thing of affirmative action. It's kind of the next step from affirmative action. And I think what we need to have inclusive meritocracy, where the only time that you look at two candidates that may be absolutely the same to fulfill a certain position, and if one is a little more diverse than the other, and you want to improve your diversity, okay, fine, take that. But the rest of the time should be just meritocracy, that the best people get in. For example, in recruiting, we've had too many of these employment equity targets, and I'm okay with someone who wants to serve, meets the standards, should be allowed to serve. But I mean, I don't think you should prioritize one group over another group. That's just identity politics that don't help unity of this country. And so to me, that's kind of where I stand on this stuff.
And militaries succeed or fail in large part to their leadership. You suggest the same applies to a nation. So what needs to change in our nation's leaders?
Well, I mean, first of all, our nation's leaders, I think, need to believe in our nation. We need to get better in patriotism. We need to promote Canadians. Naveen, we needed Donald Trump to kind of shake us out of our complacency a little bit and have some Canadians start talking about patriotism, start flying the flag, start, singing our national anthem with some gusto. That doesn't mean you should boo some other nation's anthem. I believe that is not the right way to do things, because an anthem represents the people, not the leaders of the country. So we have nothing against the people of the United States, so we should not be booing their anthem, but we should be screaming our national anthem, singing it with some meaning, and so our leaders need to promote that. Our leaders need to get back to some common sense. Our leaders need to look at what's going wrong in Canada and get a whole of society effort to fix it. And that's going to take some leadership, and I believe that right now we don't have that.
I think Canadians are they're patriotic, but they're very reserved in their patriotism. But every once in a while, it peaks out. We saw the Four Nations final where Canada beat the U.S. We saw a lot of patriotism there. But you're right. I think it just needs to come out more. And you said this. You said Canadians need to be shaken out of our complacency just earlier there, and that we need more outrage. And yet we also need to be respectful with those who disagree with us. Can you just unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine balance, isn't it? I mean, because you don't want to get into a society that, you start beating up on those that don't agree with you. You need to have a dialogue. You need to have some respectful dialogue, but also one that takes things into consideration. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. I'm going to listen to your point. And if you have a good point and you've actually got facts to back it up, then I will, reluctantly perhaps have to agree with you. And so we need to be more upfront about this. But the kind of outrage I think I'm talking about is that when somebody hears that that some decision was made that absolutely makes no sense, not to just sit back and say, well, that's the government and there you go. No, you need to be outraged by it. Write to your MP, talk to your friends, say, discuss it with them, have the dialogue, and then take some action. And so we need to be better at doing this. And it cannot just be one way. And you need to take a position. That's the other thing, is our government very often tries to fix both sides of an issue. You look at what's going on in Israel. My wife and I are huge supporters of Israel. That's who we should be supporting. And we should not let, it's okay to do pro-Palestinian, those that want to demonstrate, that's fine, but they should not be doing it in a way that's hateful to our country and to Israel. Anti-Semitism has no place in our country.
Michel Maisonneuve is a retired Canadian Lieutenant General and author of In Defense of Canada, Reflections of a Patriot. Michel, merci beaucoup. Thank you for joining us today.
Merci, Naveen. Great to speak to you. Thank you. Merci.
I'm Naveen Day on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.